Hello, Yu-Gi-Oh players, and welcome to Yu-Gi-Oh! Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0. I'm in really sucky lighting today. I've been kind of confined to my room since there is activity throughout the rest of the house. Anyway, first off, I want to make a massive apology for my relative lack of content in the last week and a half. Actually, the story of my attempting to make this video is rather symbolic of the rest of my last week and a half. I was in the newsroom earlier today working on something, and I decided, why don't I make the video since nobody else was in the newsroom. And as soon as I started trying to make this video, other staff members started pouring in, and I just started getting assignments, and I just didn't have time until now to make this video. It's not entirely clear whether or not I actually have time now, but I decided to put it aside so that I could talk to you guys about YCS London. Now, when I covered ARG Circuit, or when I reviewed, when I analyzed, I almost said analyzed, ARG Circuit Columbus, what I did was I looked at the top two decks that fought, of course, ARG Circuit Columbus, and that was very appropriate for that video. A, they were decks that we aren't used to seeing. B, they had very strong anti-dragon strategies, and C, they were very different to the normal way that we expect those two decks to play. So it was really important for me to go down those deck lists in particular to discuss what made those decks so successful. But the problem with doing that for YCS London is that the top two decks for YCS London were also the top 8 decks, and the top 16 decks, and the top 32 decks. Which was mind-blowing. I don't think anybody watched the coverage of YCS London and wasn't just, like, stricken by the colossal power of Dragon Rulers this format. Because before YCS London, we'd seen kind of Dino Rabbit numbers. I don't know how many of you guys remember the March 2012 format. That wasn't too long ago. But pretty much for the couple months after that, until Chaos Dragons came out, Dino Rabbit was the dominating force. The grand majority of the format was run by Dino Rabbit. But the thing was that while Dino Rabbit was obviously the best deck of the format, the most decks in the top tables were Dino Rabbit decks. There were still a lot of decks, of rogue decks and various other tiered decks showing up in those top tables. And the same was true of Dragon Rulers up until now. You'd have, of the top 16, it would be 11 Dragon Rulers and then 5 other decks, or even just 10 Dragon Rulers, 6 other decks. Top 32 would be, 20 Dragon Ruler decks and 10 other decks. But this event, I saw numbers that I haven't seen since Teledad. Which was mind-boggling to me. And so what I want to discuss now is what went wrong for the other decks in the format that were doing so well up until now at YCS London, and what went so right for Dragon Rulers. So my first analysis is that the success of these anti-meta decks, it's amazing the Dragons have shifted the argument or the debate over decks this format, or the tiers, so much that if you're not a Dragon Ruler deck, you are the anti-meta. It's kind of amazing. Anyway, so these anti-meta, these rogue decks, have had pretty enormous success in the last few events, the last few relatively well-publicized events. You've been seeing a ton of new decks sprouting up all over the internet that have been really successful at various regionals. But I think that success may have damned those rogue decks for YCS London, because let's face it, the vast majority of these decks beat Dragon Rulers in a very similar fashion. I talked about this when I was talking about the top 2 at ARG Circuit Columbus, which is that they have this very set strategy. The first part of the strategy, you remove the Dragon Rulers from the board. You remove all their field presence from the board. Then you establish an extremely strong monster presence. Usually just one monster. In the case of ARG Circuit, it was Pleiades or or Ophion. Other decks have their own things. You establish a very strong field presence, and then you put the beat down on dragons with cards like Imperial Iron Wall, Goes in Match, Vanity's Emptiness. And that was a very successful formula, except for finally, Dragon Ruler players have been wisening up to it. We saw at YCS London we've seen a wide variety of ways that Dragon Ruler players have been getting creative and taking down those strategies. Dragon Ruler players are now maining things like Trigon, which is another blaster target, and it's, of course, another debris target if you need it. They've been almost every one that I've looked at cited either Fencing Fire Ferret or Snipe Hunter or something similar. We've been seeing an influx of use of Divine Wrath, which takes out cards like Ophion and Pleiades. So Dragon Ruler players have been wisening up, and one of the most influential things, in my opinion, is the fact that I'm pretty sure, I mean, I've looked pretty thoroughly, but I haven't looked at all of them. I'm pretty sure that every Dragon Ruler deck in the top 32 either mained or sided, most of them 2 skill drain, quite a few of them even 3 skill drain. And the thing about skill drain is there is not a single deck out there that can go toe-to-toe with dragons that is not crushed by skill drain. Because let's think about it. Let's see. Decks that have been successful against dragons so far. Madolche. Skill drain wrecks them. Evil Swarm Constellar can't do anything with skill drain on the board. Even spellbooks have issues with skill drain. Fire Fist have basically nothing they can do with skill drain on the board. And until now, Dragon Ruler players have been ignoring what is, in my opinion, the most essential tenet to competitive deck building, which is that in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh!, a defensive strategy is a losing strategy. If you side your entire side deck to counter your opponent's counter for your cards, all you're going to be doing is getting pushed back and then trying to get back into a position where you can make your plays. And then they'll play something that keeps you from making plays, and then you gotta make sure, then you gotta play something that tries to get around that play. No, skill drain puts your opponent's deck on the defensive. And that's one of the most important things to crushing the competition when it comes to a tier 0 deck, is usually there are dominant strategies that can take it down, but if you're always siding that defensive game, you're never going to get anywhere. Dragon Rulers at YCS London showed some balls. They sided in those skill drains. They sided in those Snipe Hunters, which can take full advantage. They use their entire array of cards that use discarding costs that no other deck could use in order to take down the competition, and use every advantage that is available to the deck through the use of the graveyard, through use of the hand, through even use of the Banished Stone in the deck, that no other deck has available to them. And that's what went supremely well for Dragon Rulers at this event, and went so badly for other decks. For the first time, rogue decks, anti-meta decks against dragons have been forced to go on the defensive, and that is scary for the rest of us. I am really excited to see that there was a Thunder Family deck that got into the top 32. I'm going to see if I can get the deck profile for you guys. I want to analyze what they did that was so successful against this particular meta. I know that the guy used Cardi, which is one of the things that I've been suggesting for the deck, but I digress. There was also a Madolche deck that I want to talk about. I actually really want to talk about Madolches in a future video. I'm going to start doing a new video series in which I talk about decks that I think are relatively ignored that are actually really good, particularly in this format. So look forward to that. I will have more content. Of course, today was supposed to be a Tuesday deck workshop. To those of you who have submitted deck workshop or decks for me to workshop one of these times, I'm going to get the order of my wording correct. I will get to that this week, definitely. I'm sorry I've been delaying for so long. But meanwhile, I hope you guys like this analysis. If you want to see more, hit that thumbs up, and of course, even if you just like it and you're satisfied with what you have. And if you didn't hit that, let me do my outro correctly. It's been so long since I've done it. Meanwhile, thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up button. If you didn't, let me know why in the comment section below. And if you want to see more, subscribe for more discussions, analysis, and general Yu-Gi-Oh! Shenanigans. Meanwhile, thank you guys for watching Yu-Gi-Oh! And Business Casual. I'm your host, the RJB0, and I gotta jet. See you guys.